Arriving back at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office in London after their visit to Egypt, the Projecting British Islam delegation outlined how they felt British Muslims were viewed in the Arab state.
There are very basic concerns about whether we're having halal food or whether we've got mosques or whether we're oppressed. So the fact that there are almost 20 million Muslims in the West now, that fact has not registered. The fact that we have total religious freedom, that fact has not registered. And my impression is that they're responding to media headline after headline, which has by and large been negative for a host of reasons. And therefore the perception, I'm sorry to say, is by and large a negative perception, and therefore this kind of work needs to continue to try and rebalance some of those negative ideas to becoming more positive notions of what it's like to be a Westerner and a Muslim.
I was quite concerned that they had real negative impressions of Muslims. Primarily, I guess that's from the sensational news headlines. And I think that the aspect I took away was that I was able to overcome those stereotypes and explain to the individuals that we met that no society is perfect. Take, for example, Egypt, a Muslim country, not without its problems. And I said the same thing is with a country who is not Muslim, but the things that we're able to do here in England, we wouldn't be able to dream of doing in Egypt. So I try to communicate that it's, Earth is not supposed to be a utopian place. It's a place of struggle, and we have to strive and to do our best and contribute as much as we can to society and tackle the thorny issues at the same time, not neglect them.
Their perception was one of great interest because I converted to Islam, and I knew certainly when I joined this delegation that there would be an element for me of being poster girl, and certainly in certain discussions that we walked into, people were quite sort of taken aback. But that was rather nice for me, because the idea for me was to talk about the fact that Islam is a religion, not an ideology. It doesn't have a face and it doesn't have a uniform.
During the trip, they met with former jihadis and felt both sides could learn from each other.
I think that the most striking aspect was the fact of the bankruptcy of ideas that they had as youngsters. They came in as very zealot, very simplistic ideas to solve the complicated world, i.e. an Islamic state. 25, 30 years on, they realized, much wiser after killing many people, that life is very complicated, the state is very complicated. And I felt that the single thing that we took away from them was the fact that this is a story that needs to be told. Unfortunately, it's all in Arabic. And we have many young, impressionable youngsters here who are watching TV, looking at Iraq, Afghanistan, and they too are falling into trouble thinking all our problems will be solved by a magic wand, by the creation of an Islamic state.
And I think we have lessons to learn from each other. I think the British government certainly has learnt the benefit of engaging some of the delegates that are, for example, on this course, who have great knowledge of this, who are very much involved in counter-terrorism, making sure that young people are not radicalised and deprogramming them afterwards. That the more discourse that's opened up between these people, the better, with a caveat, and the caveat is that some of these people, you have to listen very carefully to what they believe still, because you don't want to give a platform to the wrong type of individual.
Overall, the visit has given them ideas of how to tackle extremism in Britain.
To depend on Egypt and Egyptians to solve our problems here in Britain or in the West is a non-starter. It's not going to happen. We'll have to do it ourselves. They just don't have the level of thought complexity that's required to address your Joe Muslim growing up in Bradford and Birmingham.
I think the main thing that I walked away with was talking to these former jihadists. For the work that I do, I think it was very important that I was able to have that conversation, which I now will have with many youngsters as well.
The delegation hopes this is the start of more visits to Islamic states, where they can share what being a Muslim in modern Britain is really like.